In the darkest shadows, in the white cold, fearlessly we search for knowledge new and old. We drink the strong spirits and read ancient tomes, the order of the Abercast. We are the brave and bold.
Stigmata Studios presents The Scorpion Strikes. In this comic book, a terrorist called the Scorpion is transported to a secret CIA prison. He quickly turns the tables on the guards and administrators and releases the prisoners. A well-armed anarchist called Constituent Zero assembles a team and fights to take the prison back. This story is a dark political action thriller. The Scorpion's actions set the stage perfectly for the Jin Jihad. Available on Indie Planet. Get more info on The Scorpion Strikes, the Jin Jihad, and other titles at stigmatastudios.com. Stigmata Studios presents The Test of the Scorpion. In this comic book, while the Jin Jihad is raging on one side of the city, the terrorist called the Scorpion sets a secondary attack in motion as he obtains a small tactical nuclear bomb. A mysterious, ever-living warrior called Cyrus the Dead Guy steps forward to test the faith of the Scorpion and his lunatic followers. This is an action-adventure story. It's a bit of swashbuckler that wraps up the Jihad stories. Available on Indie Planet. Get more info on The Scorpion Strikes, the Jin Jihad, The Test of the Scorpion, and other titles at stigmatastudios.com.
The great work is the uniting of opposites. That may mean uniting the soul with God, or uniting the macrocosm to the microcosm, the feminine principle to the masculine principle, or the ego and the non-ego. Aleister Crowley, Magic Without Tears. Boom, ba, boom, ba. Don't fuck with me. American, not American, with an evil slant. Bring him up the end with the chop of my hand.
The Abercast. Occult. History.
Hey, baby.
Conspiracy. Violence.
All right, welcome to Abercast, and I'm John Towers. This week we're going to get a little bit weirder, but hang on to that. I got some house cleaning to do. There's not going to be any trigger warnings tonight. I don't think I'm going to say anything offensive to anybody, but don't leave just yet, because I might. First and foremost, I want to say that I'll have some new comics coming out pretty soon. I'm excited about that. Also, I have a story in a anthology. It's actually prose. Like, I didn't draw any pictures for it at all. And it's coming out. It's called David J. Fairhead, who, full disclosure, is like one of my main homeboys. And that's probably how I got into the book. But the book's called Fiends of the Flesh. I know wheels are moving on it. From what I understand, the release date is sometime between summer and the end of the year. So I'll keep you up to date on that, as well as my new stuff. my new comics that are coming out. I need to congratulate an associate of mine, Stephanie Vitovich, or Witovich. She is a poet and short story writer. She probably writes big stories too. Tall stories, I don't know. But she just won the Stoker Award. So I want to say congratulations to her. That's awesome. I was approached by this band called Novus. Novus is the lead singer is Nelson W. Pyles, who is the co-host of my other podcast, the Red Horse Radio. And the other musician of the band is Anthony Rosick, who hosts a podcast called Prog Watch with the Prog Squatch, and it's all about progressive rock music. He goes and gets these fucking guys from like Denmark and stuff that are still doing like Rush, do these long drawn out like mathematical guitar progressions and stuff. But he comes in, he gets them on the show and gets permission to play all their new music and stuff. And it's cool. Last time we talked, well, not the last time we talked, but one of the times we talked, he introduced me to this song called The Cockroach King. This is all synchronicity, everybody, because it actually influenced the story that I submitted for David J. Fairhead's Fiends of the Flesh. It has to do with cockroaches. It's all full circle, everybody. It comes all together. Also want to talk about the newsletter up front. The newsletter coming out next month is going to have I'm recording this on Cinco de Mayo. I'm not drinking margaritas, though. I'm recording this on Cinco de Mayo, so the newsletter actually is going to have... I've invented a new method. I did a new method to create some Cinco de Mayo themed snack. So I'm going to post all the recipes with my usual bubbly personality there. So check that out. Also, there's going to be some other stuff. I'm actually going to publish the synopsis for my first couple books of my new miniseries. I'm going to publish some synopsises and some maybe artwork for one or two of the first ones. So if you're interested in that, go ahead and sign in to the newsletter. The link is in the show notes. No triggers tonight. That's cool. I'm excited about that. So, pour yourself a big old gin jihad, mix it up real good with the winged caduceus, which is the rod of Hermes. We're gonna get to talk about alchemy and the great work of alchemy coming up here pretty soon. So I've been interested in alchemy. I remember when I was a kid, one of the places that I grew up was this shithole, like, rural town. It's like just far enough away from Cleveland to not be a suburb. And it's like we go to the fair and there'll be like tractors and fucking shit there. But I wasn't real popular as a kid, and I didn't like going home, so I'd go to the library after school and just like read through old books and stuff. So I found this old book, and they had a section in it dealing with this medieval art, which was real esoteric to me, because it was like a snake. In one picture, it was like a snake in a golden chalice, and then the next picture, it would be like a snake with 3 heads in a golden chalice, and there would be like a black dove or a black bird turning into a white bird with a lily with the fucking power of God in it or something. And there would be like a king and a queen, and they would like, in the next picture, they'd like be merged together with like 2 heads and wings and boobs and male parts and like 4 arms and stuff. It was real weird for me to get my head around. But now that I'm thinking about it, I'm thinking like, those are like coded alchemy things. It has a lot to do with hermeticism and gnosis. So I think that, I've stated before on the show that I'm sort of obsessed with like the Gnostic worldview. And so maybe that's where it goes through. Like, I don't ever chase it back that far, but really, I think that might be where it's at. fucking birds and ravens turning into doves and snakes divided into 3 heads and golden chalices and hermaphrodites. Oh, that's some weird shit. All right, so when you say the word alchemy to people, it means a lot of different things to a lot of different people. You know, it'd be like, oh, it's those guys that trying to turn lead into gold, or that's where chemistry and science began. And there was like some magic mumbo jumbo going on, and I was like, yes, of course, that's actually what I think. People will also say like there's this fractional interest banking, you know, where they're just turning like these digits on a computer into like actual cash. And then like that's a way. I actually got into a fight with a lawyer one time about the Federal Reserve and this fractional interest banking. I don't know. I mean, I know how interest works, but I mean, is it magic? I'm not sure. You know, someone has the population of this whole world wandering around thinking that these little green pieces of paper are worth something. So maybe, you know, yeah, I think it is. So the chemist and the alchemist are kind of like the way that I think of operational masons and Freemasons. Like the operational masons actually building people's houses with stones. The Freemasons are like building, they're building houses with like good thoughts and magic rituals and riding around on robot goats. So, you know, like there's some kind of aspect to them that's different. So that's the way that I think of the chemist versus the alchemist. You know, the chemist doesn't require they're not required to be spiritual. They just need to have chemicals and Bunsen burners and like glass beakers and test tubes and stuff. The alchemist, however, needs to be spiritual. He needs to be introspective. The alchemist needs to be open and honest with himself or herself. There's actually a pretty famous old school female alchemist, Mary the Jewess was one of them. She actually started writing. She was, anyhow, whatever. Whatever you think the great work is, or the Magnum Opus, whatever you think the Magnum Opus of Alchemy is, whether you think it's transmuting iron into gold or transmuting yourself or to reclaim your divine spark, the alchemist cannot do the great work without changing himself. The alchemist is driven by the mysteries of oneself, and therefore by extension the mysteries of the universe. And I say by extension because we're going to see this over and over again real fast. It's coming up. Is this idea of as above, so below? Like Mr. Crowley said at the beginning of the show, in the cold open, the great work is the uniting of opposites. That may mean uniting the soul with God, uniting the macrocosm with the microcosm. So he's already talking about this, as above, so below. So alchemy has a long labyrinthian history and tradition. Has an Eastern tradition in China and India. There's a part of alchemy that refers to the Kabbalah, which is a Hebrew aspect. We're going to actually do probably a whole series of shows on Kabbalah at some point. Well, I'm old enough now to, never mind. Islam, there's an Islamic tradition, and it survived in medieval Europe, more out of the science aspect. It was folded into alchemy. But during the Renaissance, due to the dawn of modern science and pharmaceuticals, you know, the chemistry aspect of it went on. Eventually, it was folded back into the alchemical process. The primary goal for alchemy is the Magnum Opus, and that is it's either literal or some kind of coded way to transmute base metal, lead, into gold. We're going to get into this. The maxim or motto of the alchemist, the alchemistic worldview is as above, so below. It's sort of like this fractal Mendelbrot set of the universe. The golden ratio that spirals seashells is the same math that spirals these galaxies out. And just the thing about as above, so below, if you look at this, there's this illustration. It's called the Goat of Mendes. Actually, the guy who drew it, his name was Eliphas Levi. This Eliphas Levi drew this thing is basically like the huge concepts of alchemy distilled down into like this one graphic. And he called it the Goat of Mendes. Everyone else looks at it and they call it Baphomet. Whatever. I call it the Goat of Mendes because that's what the fucking guy who drew it said it. But it's this goat-headed creature, and he's got like goat legs, but he's got a nice set of boobs. He's got a nice set of boobs, and he's got a dick, and around his dick are like swirling these two snakes around it, forming a caduceus. Which actually has to do with you like unlocking your Kundalini spirit with like yoga or whatever you're going to do it with. And he's pointing, his one hand's pointing up and his one hand's pointing up to a white moon and his other hand's pointing down to a black moon. And this is what he's saying. These are the unity of all these opposites. The sun and the moon, or the light and the dark, or the male and female, because he's like a hermaphrodite. And then on his forearms, he's got these tattoos. One says solve and one says coagula. We're going to get to that in a minute. I don't want to get too far ahead with the solve coagula stuff. But there's also some of this imagery that you see with this alchemical or hermetical artwork it gets used again in like tarot cards, especially the White Rider tarot card. If you don't have a White Rider tarot card set, I suggest you go out and get it. It will help you with your writing. Not that it has like powers. I'm just saying like there's so much weird stuff. Like I do this if I'm writing and I need like a quick writing exercise to get my juices flowing. I'll just throw down like a quick randomized set of tarot cards and look at like the symbolism and stuff going on in them. And it's easy. If you throw down 3, there's the beginning, the middle, and the end. Fucking make it work, sucker. So indispensable creative tool, not because they're magic, but just because they're so fucking weird to have around the studio. Uh-oh. All right. So the tarot card thing that I was getting at is in the major arcana, there's this tarot card called the Magician. And the Magician is doing the same thing. He's pointing one hand up and one hand down. He's saying that's above, what's above is so below. And he's got this belt. And this belt is a snake eating its own tail. It's called an Ouroboros. We're going to get into that later. But it's important for right now to talk about this card. All right, so the good work, the as above, so below, the lead is your base self, aspiring to guide your to be gold, or your enlightened self. Like Crowley said at the top of the show, the greatest work is the uniting of opposites. In the Western tradition, I'm actually talking about the Hellenistic Greeks. This could also mean the achievement of gnosis, knowing, which means gnosis means knowing. The Gnostics mean the ones who know, like Dr. Stephen Heller says, the ones who know. What do they know? Other stuff, they do lesser works. This, like I said, this is all like we're working up to getting to their main ritual thing, the great work or the Magnum Opus. But they also do other stuff. They also look for elixirs of life. They are also trying to create homunculuses. I don't know if it's homunculuses or homunculi. I don't know if you guys know what this is, but it's like if you Kind of think of like Boaz the Stone Golem, like the Golem episode, but it's like if you were just to like throw cum onto a turd, and then like also put like different herbs and stuff on there, and like do some magical incantations, it'll actually grow into a human person. Think about like what they think. Think about what these people thought about genetics or like the value of human life. If you could just create a human by jerking off onto a piece of shit, it's so weird, man. I don't understand these people. Alchemists also worked on curing diseases. They had a big hang up about this universal acid thing. We're going to get into that later. It's a big part of this whole story, this universal acid or universal solvent and other stuff like that. So we're going to move on. Moving on. All right. Black, then white are all I see in my infancy. Red and yellow then came to be, reaching out to me, lets me see. As below, so above and beyond, I imagine, drawn beyond the lines of reason. Push the envelope, watch it bend. Overthinking, overanalyzing, separates the body from the mind. Withering my intuition, missing opportunities, and I must feed my will to feel my moment, drawing way outside the lines. Black then white are all I see in my infancy. Red and yellow then came to be, reaching out to me, lets me see so much more and beckons me to look through to these infinite possibilities. As below, so above and beyond, I imagine, drawn outside the lines of reason. Push the envelope, watch it bend. Overthinking, overanalyzing separates the body from the mind. Withering my intuition, leaving opportunities behind. Feed my will to feel this moment, urging me to cross the line. Reaching out to embrace the random. Reaching out to embrace whatever may come. Embrace my desire to feel the rhythm, to feel connected enough to step aside and weep like a widow, to feel inspired, to fathom the power, to witness the beauty, to bathe in the fountain, to swing on the spiral, to swing on the spiral, to swing on the spiral of our divinity, and still be human. With my feet upon the ground, I lose myself between the sound. And open wide to suck it in, I feel it move across my skin. I'm reaching up and reaching out. I'm reaching for the random or whatever will bewilder me. Whatever will bewilder me. And following our will and wind, we may just go where no one's been. We'll ride the spiral to the end. We may just go where no one's been. Spiral out. Keep going. That is Tool. Lateralis from the album Lateralus. That whole album is full of alchemical, hermetical, Gnostic songs. There's actually a song called Grudge in there that I believe has to do with Velikovsky's Saturn thing, which we talked about a couple episodes and episodes ago. So before we get into this is like the prerequisite to the Magnum Opus talk. So we still need to get through some stuff here. It's a long song. All right, so we need some concepts and some symbols. The first is the Philosopher Stone. Think about a small circle in a square inside a triangle inside a bigger circle. This is symbol of the Philosopher's Stone. This is what you're aspiring to become when you go through this Magnum Opus. You're trying to become this Philosopher's Stone. I don't know why they call it a stone. I don't know why they call it the Philosopher's Stone. But basically it's the idea of the divine. The divine and the spiritual are the round circles, and the material world are the hard corners. So you're a divine spark inside a square, that's inside a triangle, that's inside a larger circle. I'm looking at this note right now in my altered state, and all I can think about is it's a combo code for Injustice. For DC's Injustice, it's a combo code on my PlayStation 4 controller or my PlayStation 3 controller. But it's a diagram symbolizing the duality of the material / spiritual worlds, a divine being trapped encased inside matter. The next concept that we need to look at is the one or the all. And it's the creative force of the whole world. It's the alpha and the omega. And these alchemists used to encode that as an Ouroboros, which is the snake biting its own tail. And you're like, a snake biting its own tail as a symbol for the alpha and the omega? Yeah, there's a reason that these people were encoding this stuff, because that shit is blasphemous. And that gets back to the magician card, the tarot card that we were just talking about before the break. This guy's wearing he's wearing God around his hips. I mean, I guess I didn't really think of it till that I just said that. So the next concept is the opposing forces. Again, this is talking about duality, but this is talking about all duality. This is not just talking about it's not like the Philosopher's Stone symbol that's just talking about the material and the spiritual world. This is talking about day and night and sun and moon and lead and gold and male and female, and we could just whatever. This is basically the idea of the yin yang for for Chinese people. This opposing forces. The symbols are these two dragons that are like they're in a mosh pit. They're in a mosh pit, or they're dancing, or they're chasing each other's tails. And you're like, it's two dragons chasing each other's tail. I don't understand what the problem is. One of them has wings and the other doesn't. So one is vulgar and one is like enlightened, or one is like earthbound and the other one can fly. So these are the two things. It's between the earth and the air. Yeah. Just between the earth and the air. And we're also going to talk real quick about this universal acid, or the solvent, that I mentioned when I was talking about the Gota Mendes, the tattoos on his arms, the solve et coagula. It's to cut elements down to its purest or perfect form, so it could be united with another element. So we're going to get into a lot of this when we get into these 7 steps of the actual Magnum Opus. But so part of the opposing forces thing is to like cut out the imperfections, so the forces might not oppose anymore. They might be more open to getting combined and making a new compound. The 3 primes. So the 3 primes are mercury, sulfur, and salt. But because nothing can be easy, there's also a set of alternate meanings. So mercury, sulfur, and salt it actually means mercury is mind, sulfur is the soul, and salt is the body. Another set is mercury is the mind, it's also the feminine aspect. Sulfur is the soul, and it's also the masculine aspect. And salt is still just the body. So there's 4. This is like an extra track on a CD. If you guys remember what CDs are. There's 4 aspects, and then there's a hidden one later. So the 4 aspects are kind of like the elements. You know, there's fire, water, air, and earth. Fire represents your will. Water represents your emotions. It could run hot or cold if it's not in balance. Balance is something we're going to talk a lot about later. Air is your intellect, and earth, again, is your body. Now, the fifth aspect that we talked about before, the fifth element or aspect is, it's not Lilu or Mila Jovovich. It's called quintessence, or ether. And it binds elements and it separates elements. It's like, when I think about this quintessence, I think it's like I'm on Dagobah with Yoda. And Yoda, even though Obi-Wan Kenobi says that the Force moves through living and organic things, Yoda actually says it moves through all things. It moves through the rocks, the fucking trees, us, everything. It moves. If it fucking moves through the rock, it moves through everything. Your fucking spaceship, it moves through that shit too. So that's how I think about this ether. I also think of it as like, when you're in elementary school and you have those lunch trays that have like the raised sides, like making patterns, like indented areas, so you can like put your shitty like canned corn into one slot and then like your shitty mashed potatoes in the other slot, and they won't like mix up or combine. That's the ether. Like, that's the quintessence. Like, that's it. It holds and separates all these elements. Yeah, so that's it. So, the great work has, working with the material world and matter. There are 4, I don't want to call them processes now at this point, but there's 4 color changes that are used as a model for individual process for achieving enlightenment. So I guess the idea is that these were chemical change that they started to use in this ritual or this magic act that they were doing. Now, there's 4 of them, but there's actually 5 of them. But some people, they say that there's actually up to 17 of them. I have 4.5. I have 4, and then one's not numbered, and it's kind of off to the side with this little line where I think it might fit. There's the Negretto. The color associated with that is black. It's the shadow. It's the base. It's where you start. Like, I think of this as like, it's not where you start. It's where you start would be like the prequel to this. Like, this is when you're hitting rock. This is like where you hit rock bottom. This is like when you're staring into your fucking soul. And we're going to get into that when we get into the 7, where we get in the 7 stages. We're going to talk a lot about the Negretto, but it's not organized by this color thing. So the next one, between the Negretto and the second process, which is albedo. The albedo is the white. It's transformative. It's the one. It's you mingling with the one, bathing you in its light. But before that, in between, so this is like 1.5, is the Coeda pavonia. It's the peacock tail process. And what it is when the light of albedo comes to you and hits you, you act like a prism, and it's like, not in the movie, but in the books of the Lord of the Rings, when Gandalf becomes Gandalf the White, Sauron's like, he gets bumped up to the code of many, it's not called the code of many colors. That's an Old Testament reference, but he like gets like many colors. In the movie, they could both stay white, but I think in the book, one of them gets fractaled. One of them gets like shattered. So this makes me think of the Pink Floyd album cover where the white light hits the prism and it turns into like a rainbow going out. And then after albedo with the white light, comes the citrinatus, which is a yellow color, and this is part of the transformative product as well. And then it turns into the process number 4 is the rubedo, which is the red. Red indicates spiritual energy. This is like where the transformation ends. So I'm going to go right back to like Lateralus, where he's like black and white are all I see in my infancy. Then red and yellow comes to be. Like, he's obviously talking, and it's all about like changing. I want to change. I need to go through my shadow and fucking change. Like, well, the shadow thing might come up. Hold on. No, but he does do it as above, so below and beyond. We'll get to the shadow the next one. Which is, ironically, my shadows shedding skin, and I've been picking scabs again. I'm down digging through my old muscles looking for a clue. I've been crawling on my belly, cleaning out what could have been. I've been wallowing in my own confused and insecure delusions. For a piece to cross me over, or a word to guide me in, I want to feel the changes coming down. I want to know what I've been hiding in. My shadow. Changes coming through my shadow. My shadow shedding skin. I've been picking my scabs again. I've been crawling on my belly, cleaning out what could have been. I've been wallowing in my own chaotic, insecure delusions. I want to feel the change consume me, feel the outside turning in. I want to feel the metamorphosis and cleansing I've endured within. My shadow, change is coming. Now is my time. Listen to my muscle memory. Contemplate what I've been clinging to. 46 and 2 ahead of me. I choose to live and grow. Take and to give. And to move, learn, and to love. And to cry, kill, and die. And to be paranoid, and to lie, hate, and fear, and to do what it takes to move through. I choose to live and to lie, kill and to give, and to die, learn, and love, and to do what it takes to step through. See my shadow changing, stretching up and over me. Soften this old armor, hoping I can clear the way by stepping through my shadow and coming out the other side. Step into my shadow, 46 and 2 just ahead of me. All right, so according to the Emerald Tablets of Thoth, who are written by this legendary hermetic alchemist named Hermes Trismegistus, that means 3 times great. He was the greatest king, the greatest priest, and the greatest philosopher. He was a legendary figure that was kind of like a Kambano-kist of Thoth, the Egyptian god Thoth, and the Greek god of Hermes. You probably throw a dash of Mercury, the Roman Mercury, in there too. But he identified these 7 steps. These 7 steps to the great work, and they sound a lot like moonshining. Oh, these these emerald tablets. This is like they've kind of like made a comeback in recent times because of that documentary, The Secret. At the very beginning, it shows this woman like finding and like saving these green tablets or whatever. It's this documentary where like people convince you, like, if you just walk around in a good mood all day, like, you can drive to the grocery store and get a better parking spot. you know, I don't know what to say. It's true. So there's these 7 steps to this great work. Hold on, jeez. Oh, that passage I read was 46 and 2 by Tool on the Anima album. I guess I just figured that you knew that. Okay, step 1. Calcination. This is the breaking down of the ego self. The initial breakdown of a base metal with fire, removing imperfections and impurities. Inside, it's a stage of self-awareness, constantly monitoring your inner self, breaking down what is false and keeping only what is pure. So that, like, I've never spell casted my way through these steps or whatever, but to me, this is, I do this. I do the calcination process often. Now, I'm kind of a workaholic, so I don't spend a lot of time watching the television. If I'm watching TV, I'm usually also working. Except for Jeopardy. Jeopardy is the half an hour I give myself where I could just prove my knowledge, my superior knowledge over everybody by myself, without actually having to draw stuff or whatever. But like the rare times that like I see, like I'm sitting there and I'm just like zoning out and like trying to, I don't know, whatever. And I realize that I'm watching TV. I'll do like imagine myself like in a bird's eye view so I could see like the whole room. And then I'll just take the TV out and I'll be like, look at me, I'm an idiot. I'm just sitting here fucking staring at this wall. Or another good one, probably a better one, is if I'm playing video games. Because if I'm playing video games, I'm obviously not working. So I have to like schedule video game time or whatever. But like say I got my PlayStation 3 out. And I know I'm a barbarian. I only have a PlayStation 3. Or like if I'm like, God, I've been playing this game for like an hour and a half. I'll imagine, like, I'll just take the creative part. I'll just take the TV away and, like, look at myself. And I'm like, look at this fucking monkey jumping around pressing these buttons. Shouldn't he be doing something creative? So that's my experience with the calcination process. Process number 2, deuce, is disillusion. And that's when you continue to break down the false, but you do this a different way. You do this by a total immersion into the rejected parts, into your shadow. So the way that I imagine is like you're standing there and you got like these big holes missing where like you rip where the false parts of you came out, and you're like, I got a hole in my shoulder and like one of my nuts is gone or whatever. Like that bad knee is taken out. But right next to you is this pile, like a pool of just black, like ooze, like it's just shit, like a slime. And you're like, well, I'm pretty sure this part of me is pure. So now I got to go into the corrupted part and make sure I didn't purge any of the pure stuff. So it's total immersion into your shadow, just like 46 and 2 says. Now the 46 and 2 thing doesn't have much to do with alchemy, but I mean, we might get into that some other time. So, in disillusion, you dive, like you go into your shadow and you actually dissolve the ashes of calcination, of the calcination stage. So you're like, you go in there and then like, say you like, by some stretch of the imagination, like you're totally immersed by all the falsehoods and all the imperfections, and you might find like something you threw away that you didn't mean to. And you're like, oh, so you like crawl back out of it, like your arm like comes out and like slaps onto the ground, and you pull yourself out of like this black awful material world part of yourself, and you climb out and you just have like a handful of like little white pieces that you need to put back in because you don't want to get rid of those. You don't want to have to relive the experience that you got to get those because that shit's precious. Stage 3, separation. You have to leave the impurities, only take what is pure. Regenerate pieces by what we know is the truth. This is when you isolate and you use filtration. You're sorting out one's internal aspects. The fire, which is the will, the water, which is the emotions, the air, which is the intellect, and the earth, which is your body. And you're using the ether, or the quintessence, as a medium to maintain balance. So think of it as like, when you have like those level, you have like a leveler, like a level finder, and it has the different bubble levels in. This is your first gauge. Like, you need to make all three of these things kind of like line up, and this is your first one to the great work. Is you need to make sure the four aspects, or these four elements, are equally stashed, like equally gauged, like it's all equally calibrated within you. So it's like you never really get super mad, and you never really get like super happy, I guess, or you're never like too smart to become arrogant, and you're never too dumb to be like an idiot. Like, you just have to make sure that all these aspects are totally balanced with you. You don't want to be too willful. These really, actually, that's really a great kind of way to not be a fucking douchebag, is to think about this stuff. So, I mean, I guess there's just another piece of enlightenment I learned from reading my own lesson thing. All right. Step 4. Conjunction. Junction. What's your function? Conjunction is development by uniting your true self. This is actually the business end of the this is the pointy end of the Magnum Opus, the alchemic great work. This is the sacred union. This is uniting your polarities. This is uniting your saved elements and combining them into a new substance. This is the first enlightenment, or the first level of enlightenment, or the first enlightenment. And then I wrote here, hallucinate? ? I don't know, because you're seeing like lights, I guess. And then you get into the real shit. Step 5 out of 7, this is the real shit. This is the fermentation stage. And this is the acceptance of the divine power and grace. So at the end of step 4, you experience the divine power and grace. At the beginning of step 5, the fermentation is when you accept the divine power and grace. And then it becomes a bad trip. You're exposed to catalysts or revelations. You understand that your dual nature cannot be denied or rejected. All you can do is accept it and unify it. And then distillation, step 6, sorry. Step 6, we have to make sure that we got all the shitty parts out. So this is another double check. This is the triple checkaroo. This person is a military person. Like, this guy is a flight coordinator or a load master of some sort, because he's checking his shit. So distillation is, we have to make sure that we got all the shitty parts out of you, because we have to get you ready for the final phase. Purification of solution. This is the solve et coagula, by boiling and condensation. It's a powerful process to purify a compound and to separate it from a volatile component. And we want to do this to get rid of your mental, unconscious mental separations, meaning that you're not a whole, you're not a oneness in mind. It's like schizophrenia or like multiple personality disorder or something like that, but just on like a normal person scale. Like when you hear that voice talking to you that's contrary, that is an unconscious separation of your mental state, because he's questioning you. Whether you think that might be good or bad, I don't know. But when you want to be pure, you got to get that shit out. That's profound. That shit is fucking profound. You don't even want Jiminy Cricket with you, son. You want to get rid of that shit. Because you want to get rid of your mental, unconscious separations and artifacts. Anything that you might be holding on to. And step 7. Here we go. Here's the big one. Yeah. Step 7. Coagulation is the second enlightenment. The divine spark in you and your material self are united and resolved. The male-female aspects, united and resolved. Aspects or elements are all balanced. This is the 3-level thing that I was saying. This is when all the motor is running perfectly. All your levels are filled perfectly. All your shit, all the gunk is out of there. You used your solve et coagula to clean all your pistons. This is when your shit is perfect. An unpolarized human being, unified in his dualism and free of ignorance. There's this thing that they talk about where you have like a diamond light or something, and the diamond light actually becomes a diamond consciousness. And this is the weirdest part of this whole fucking thing. The names of God come down from heaven and cover up all of your orifices. I don't understand that. I guess it's like you're sealing up, like you don't need to eat anymore and you don't need to shit anymore and you don't need to pee anymore, so you're not like shitting on the name of God or peeing on the name of God or trying to eat it. I'm just trying to understand like what that's supposed to mean to a person. I guess that's it. But I feel it's weird that once you get your diamond consciousness, the names of God float down and seal up your orifices. I mean, what if you had like a Heineken Taco Bell night before? What if you accidentally did this? Like, what if you... This is actually a funny premise. What if you accidentally became enlightened and you got sealed up with a weekends full of Heineken and Taco Bell in you? That's a fucking nightmare. Anyhow, God's names, the names of God come down and they cover and seal up all of your orifices. Your great work is complete. Congratulations. You are now a philosopher's stone. It's awesome, bros. Congratulations. I could probably talk for hours about this stuff, especially about Hermeticism and Gnosis. But this shit's weird enough for this episode. We're creeping up on our time limit here anyways. So, I want to say all the songs, passages that I read were Tool, except the cold open was obviously Aleister Crowley, from his book Magic Without Tears. The first one was Lateralus from the album Lateralus. The second one was 46 and 2 from Anima. But literally, if you put any song from Lateralus on, it's all going to have to deal with Gnosis, Hermeticism, alchemy, except for one I actually think has to do with Velikovsky's Saturn story with the cosmic cataclysm from a couple episodes ago. I think I might have already mentioned that. So here it is. I'm not a podcast telling you a bunch of interesting things and telling you jokes. And I'm not trying to sell you fucking stamps or fucking underpants. If you want to support the show, you know what to do. I make it painfully obvious, a little too painfully obvious, I think. But buy some books, share the show. I'll have some new stuff coming out real soon, so get caught up so you can be up to date when the new stuff drops. check out the newsletter. I have some stuff on the new work coming out. I'm going to have some recipes and probably some funny cat pictures because I'm a fucking funny cat guy. Just check out society-13.com if you're wondering what am I going to listen to after this? How can I top this? I'm not sure if you can top it, but you can find a lot of interesting podcasts over there on society-13.com. Also, Stitcher, iTunes, all that stuff. You can find Prog Watch with the Prog Squatch. You can find the Wicked Library. You can find Listen. You can find the Ninth Story podcast. You can find the Pop Off with Martise, who was actually text messaging me in the middle of me recording this, which is why it probably sounded like I was a little confused or distracted at some times. But we got through this, bro. This is a huge topic, and I fucking sliced through this. And I think I did a great fucking presentation for you guys about this. You probably walked away from this knowing 80% more about alchemy than you knew before. I don't know. What do you think? I don't know. What do you think? So, newsletter, Society 13. Check out Sigmata Studios on Facebook. The Abercast Facebook page is up there. I try to find some fun videos that makes sense with this week's episode. Sigmata Studios on Instagram. I post some process pics from the artwork that I'm working on, so you might want to check me out there. And yeah, a lot of the information from this week's show came from various YouTube. They helped me clean up my act, and I think there was a website called Lily and Beyond or something that helped me with the 7 stages. So check out those guys if you want to get more in depth in this stuff. And we got some more fun stuff coming. We're running weekly. I'm actually thinking about doing 2 shows this week because I just watched Guardians of the Galaxy, and I'm wondering why Marvel is doing this whole Antichrist thing for 2 movies in a row. Does that intrigue you? Are you interested in that? Let me know, because I'll tell you my fucking thoughts on it if you're interested. Besides that, thank you guys for listening. Please share with a friend. My numbers are doing great. But I want to punch them up. And also remember to check out, we got a monthly show now called Red Horse Radio with me, Nelson Pyles, and a comedian named Tempting Melanie. We'll be recording later this week to put it up. So look for it. For some reason, we can't get it on iTunes. But yeah, so it's not there. And yeah, thanks guys. Thanks for sharing. And thanks for reaching out. I love to talk to folks on the Twitter or the Facebooks or whatever. So come at me, dog. Come at me. Let me know what you think.
Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar.
Stigmata Studios presents The Jinn Jihad. The Jinn Jihad kicks your face with myths, mysteries, epic battles, suicide bombers, quirky characters, and divine power armor. In this epic graphic novel, the warrior archangels descend on a city in chaos. It's all-out war. The non-standard assembly battles an ancient terrorist organization and their ultimate weapon, a corrupted, magically enhanced, unstoppable monster, the Jinn. This graphic novel is a wild ride. It's one part distant Arab myth, one part Old Testament angelic vengeance, and one part unique heroic tough guys. Available on Amazon. Get more info on the Jinn Jihad and other titles at stigmatastudios.com.
Share the show. For God's sakes. For Hermes' sakes, share the show. Come on, I gotta go draw comics. And watch Taken 3. I have a specific set of skills. Bye, y'all.